Hello, everyone. You're all welcome to our meetup for the month of July. It's so great to see you all here. My name is Linda Ntifel, and I am the convener of Women in Research Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning. We are an online community that seeks to accelerate the careers of women in the research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning space. However, our meetups are open to anyone who identifies with the RML space or M&E, if you would like to call it, or meal. So it's great to have you all here. We are here to share knowledge. We're here to inspire each other so that we can be the best at our workplaces and also leave a legacy for those who would be coming after us. So, would like to dive straight into our session for today. So I will share my screen shortly. All right, so please confirm if you can see my screen. And while we are at the initial stages of our session today, I would like you to take some time to introduce yourselves in the chat so you can share your name, your role, and your organization, as well as where you're joining us from. All right, so as we all know, we are going to dive deeper into the topic measuring the impact of entrepreneurship programs. And we have our speaker in the person of Phylis Jepchumba, who will be leading us in the discussion. But before that, we will engage in an icebreaker. Let me just quickly show you the agenda so you're all aware of what we are in for today. All right, so we're jumping straight into our icebreaker, and I would like everyone to share anything in their minds that they've been thinking about, or if you had the opportunity to solve a problem, what would it be? A particular problem you've observed in your environment, in the world, in your community, even in your home. If you had that opportunity to address a problem, what would it be? And you can share in the chat. You can also unmute and share. So let me give us all about a minute to think about it. And then I would like to hear from you what your solutions would be to those problems. Do I see anyone? Let me see. Okay. Do I see some comments in the chat? All right, so we have Christine. Thank you, Christine. So she said sensitizing first-time mothers on infant nutrition because most of them feed their babies the wrong food at 6 months, leading to malnutrition that affects their developmental milestones. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Christine. Okay. This first says social problem. Okay. Can you give us an example? Okay. Jaya says fundraising. Yeah. Okay. And feel free if you want to be a bit more specific. Yeah, you can also add on, add more flesh. It could be something that doesn't come to mind readily. Could be like something that might seem insignificant, but very, very important or relevant and yeah, life-changing as well. So no answer is out of place. Yeah. Okay, someone says, okay, so this is back saying malnutrition. Yeah. Um, Elizabeth says to eradicate poverty through education and creation of jobs. Exactly. Great. Great. Yeah, one thing that is one thing that is great to me, great on my heart is pollution, the issue of pollution, how we take care of our environment. Um, yeah, looking for sustainable ways to take care of our environment. All right, let's keep them coming. Okay, for the sake of time, we'll dive straight into our discussion for today. Thank you all for your contributions. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite our speaker. Before she comes, I'm going to read out her profile. So please just give me a few minutes. All right. So Phylis Jepchumba is a monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning professional and data analyst based in Nairobi, Kenya. She works at IBIS Africa Incubation Center, Strathmore University, where she leads M&E for entrepreneurship and innovation programs. She holds an MSc in data science and analytics, a BSc in software engineering, and professional training in monitoring and evaluation. With over 5 years of experience, she specializes in designing M&E systems, building data pipelines, and translating program data into actionable insights for funders and decision makers. So I would want to invite Phylis now to take the virtual stage and lead us in our discussion on measuring the impact of entrepreneurship programs. Phyllis, we're pleased to have you. And yeah, participants, let's welcome her with a clap, virtual clap, or any way that we want to appreciate her.
All right, thanks, Linda, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. And also, I would like to thank you all for joining, and also for the women in RMEL team for the invitation. As Linda has mentioned, my work brings together monitoring and evaluation, data analytics, and supporting entrepreneurship program. So I'll be sharing insights from my experiences today. So I'll share my slides. So the topic of today is measuring the impact of entrepreneurship programs. So talk about how to measure the impacts of entrepreneurship beyond participation and outputs to getting like that business growth and seeing the sustainable and the lasting change of entrepreneurship programs. So to start us off, next slide. All right, so to start us off, I want us to begin with a short reflection. For example, if an entrepreneurship program reports that it maybe trained, for example, 100 entrepreneurs, delivered mentorship session, gave out like the grants, and had a successful completion rate. Maybe based on this information only, do you think the program has demonstrated impact? So we could type on the chat if you agree that these numbers show impact. You could type yes, and then maybe partly and no. Yeah, so we could type that on the chat. Well, let's engage. Type yes if you agree that these numbers demonstrate the impact of the program, partly, and then maybe no. All right, so thank you all for your responses. I can see most of you are leaning towards the partly and no. And that is the key issue that we are going to dive into today and understand what is the difference between now the program delivery and and the results it reports. So when you look at this, you find that what is still missing is that these founders apply what they learned from the program. Did their businesses gain customers? It's still missing if these businesses gain, like, or rather improve their revenue, their profits. Did they generate jobs or rather retain? Yeah, so basically participation shows a program reach, but impact shows a meaningful change. So go to the next slide. Between the program delivery up to the lasting change. We're going to look at results chain. That's basically the results framework, and understand the different levels that the program has up to, like, delivering the results. So at the first level, we have inputs. And inputs, these are basically the resources that a program invests. It could be funding, it could be like the staff, it could be like the trainers, the mentors, and the technology. So all the resources that you invest in your program go to the input. So that's first level. So, and then the second level, we have activities. So here, these inputs, or rather the resources that you invested in your program, will help us implement these activities. And activities now depends the objective of your program. What are you doing? Is it like you training? Are you doing like the networking, market linkages? So all those are the activities. And then on the third level is the output. So the immediate products of activities is outputs. And when on our last slides, we were able to see, like, the program maybe trained like about 100 entrepreneurs, maybe 50 sessions were delivered, 50 prototypes were developed. So all those outputs, and outputs are very important because they like sort of give a pulse check. Are you delivering what the program sought to deliver? And then we have outcomes. Outcomes in this case, we could talk of improved practices from that program, strong systems build, more customers, or increased like revenue. So this is the immediate change from those outputs. And then we have impacts, which is now the broader change, sustainable change. So we could talk of the number of sustainable enterprises, employment in terms of job creation, improved livelihoods, and even inclusive growth. So like I mentioned, if you look at these results chain, or rather the results framework, you realize that outputs now, they are going to show what the program delivered, but outcome and impact show what's changed from this program. So we take, for example, financial management training. Here we could say the training itself is an activity. Now, the inputs are what you're going to invest into this, like the training. For the knowledge gained, or maybe for the outputs, maybe you are going to train like 50, so you name them, like 50 entrepreneurs were trained in this program. So that will be the output. And when we talk of knowledge gained, so those are now the outcomes till the business sustainability. So that is the long-term impact, or rather the broader change from that program. Next. All right, we've looked at the results chain. It looks very straightforward. But one thing to note is that entrepreneurship programs operate in complex and changing environments. And also, business growth is really linear. So it might be difficult to measure the impact of that program. And some of the reasons, the first one is because results take time. You might like enter into a program, and things, for example, your business model is able to improve immediately during the program, but the financial results may take time. So it's very important to understand that results from a program may take time. So different outcomes you may be able to measure like later. And then the next reason why impact might be complex to measure is that ventures are different. You find that in most programs, the entrepreneurs are in different stages. There are startups, there are ventures. You might find that others are in pre-revenue, others post-revenue, but all are in the same program. But they require different indicators, or rather the outcomes. So that's also important to note. And the third reason is that external factors might influence business performance. When you look at factors such as market, inflation, regulation, and competition, all these influence business performance. You find that venture A might thrive well when there's inflation, and then venture B might fail, although the program really supported them strongly. So all those matter. And then also attribution is very difficult. You cannot always credit maybe growth to entirely one program. Maybe this venture has participated in program A and also participated in another program B, for example. So attribution is always difficult. And then also records may be weak. You find that most early stage ventures lack reliable business data. So making it like difficult, and then maybe also the biasness, as most of this data is self-reported, and participants may overstate or inconsistently report progress. So that's the reasons as to why impact is difficult to measure. Next slide, please. All right, so with those challenges in mind, we like now sort of like know the challenges that make it difficult for an entrepreneurship program maybe to really like deliver its outcomes. So what exactly should a program measure? I like putting this in like the 6 dimensions. And the first one is the founder capability. You should always look at the maybe the knowledge gained by these entrepreneurs, confidence, the leadership skills, and even the ability to make decisions. So we should not like always rely, or rather see impact as things to do with revenue. So the first one, very important, is founder capability. So you look at those things, and that's the knowledge, confidence, all those skills. The second dimension is business performance. So you look at revenue increase, and also here you have to like put your indicators very clear. So you look at revenue, it could be monthly revenue, yearly revenue. So those are the indicators that you should always define them clearly. You look at the customers, maybe customers that are paying, customers registered into that venture, also profits, and then operational efficiency. And then the third dimension is employment and livelihoods. So you look at indicators such as jobs created. It could be the consultants' jobs, part-time, full-time, all those. Jobs retained, how many jobs have been retained by that venture, and even income improvements. The fourth dimension is finance and markets. And for finance, we could look at the funding. How much has this maybe this venture, how much capital they've raised, look at the contracts they've secured, customers, and distribution channels. That is maybe expansion of their markets into like different countries, different regions. The fifth dimension is innovation and products. So you look at the number of prototypes developed, testings done, that is user testing, maybe the field testing, yeah, all those, and even commercialization. And then the last dimension is the social and ecosystem impact. So you look at the beneficiaries in terms of inclusivity, partnerships, and even community outcomes. So all these, there are dimensions that you could look into when measuring the impacts of a program. So these indicators, they are very important, but not all programs should always look at these all these dimensions. So it depends on the objectives of the program, the maturity of the ventures, or rather the entrepreneurs that you have in the program, and the intervention that program was created for. Next. Next slide, please. All right, so this is like sort of a broad explanation of what to look for in those dimensions. So when we look at the founder capability, you could talk about the financial and business management skills, what leadership skills they've gained, and the ability to make the strategic decisions. Also, we could talk of their ability to understand their customers and the business models, ability to pitch, communicate, and even and being able to use the data, the entrepreneurial confidence. So when you look at, so we look at knowledge, which they've gained, which is an immediate outcome, and also how they apply. So you look at the knowledge, how they apply, how they maybe practice in their business up to the result. So in terms of business performance, I know we've talked about this. We look at in terms of revenue, active customers, all those. Next. All right, so in terms of growth, opportunity, and value creation, we talked about access to markets. So the key indicators you could look into is the number of new customers acquired, number of contracts secured, distribution channels, strategic partnerships, customer retention, all those. In terms of access to finance, we could talk of being investor ready, number of grants, or rather capital raised, loans secured, and all those, and even the financial documentation. And then on the employment and livelihood, so you basically look at the indicators such as jobs created, full-time and part-time employment, and also the quality and inclusivity of jobs. We also talked about the innovation and products. So you look at the prototypes developed, products tested. Yeah, beyond the prototypes developed, you could also look at the user feedback that's collected, pilots, and even commercialization. Next. All right. So, and to help us now be able to achieve these results, or rather the intended, now we've set like our indicators, where do we start? So here is a practical framework that we can use to measure the impact. So the first one is we define our intended change. So here you can clarify like what exact problem are you solving, who are your target groups, and theory of change is really important here, and also define your intended outcomes. So once you have that, you need to establish the baseline. And the baseline is very important, because without this, you cannot be able to, sorry. All right, so we are talking about establishing the baseline. So baseline is very important for you to get to understand at the end of the program, was there like any change? So you need to capture, depending on the program and the entrepreneurs that you have, you need to capture things like the venture stage, the revenue, the customers, the employment, their capabilities, and even the systems. So you're able to track that and establish like the baseline. That is like your starting point. Once you establish the baseline, you could now monitor the implementation. So here you are like doing a pulse check to check if the program is delivering now your intended outcomes that you set in the first stage. So you're able to track things to do with their attendance, the engagement, their assignments, the milestones, and even the quality. So just check, just to keep you in check, like, are you doing the right thing? Are you delivering what you had intended to achieve? On the fourth stage, now we assess the outcomes. Remember, on the second stage, you had established your baseline. So now here we do the end line, and we compare with the baseline. We can examine the application of the practices they learned through the program. We are able to track like the business changes and even validate progress. So that's what you do at the fourth stage, which is basically the end line. So you are able to compare that with the second stage. And then lastly, you conduct a follow-up. A follow-up now, you are doing like you are reviewing their progress. It could be at the third month, at the sixth and 12th, and even 12 months or even more, depending on the program, and long term even where feasible. So that's the stages, a 5-stage approach that could help you measure the results, or rather the impact of the program. So you start with baseline, you do pulse checks, you do an end line, you do a follow-up, 3 to 6 months, and 12-month follow-up. So here you get to understand that measurement should begin before the program delivery and not the reporting stage. Next slide. So you realize, so how do we like turn these outcomes into measures? Like we say, like I had mentioned earlier about setting the indicators. And for an indicator, you need to like be specific. What result area are you looking at? Now you define that indicator. What are their sources? What are the timings? And even who is responsible for collecting that indicator? When we now we look at an example of founder capability. You remember we talked about looking at the knowledge gained, that is the confidence, the leadership skills. So an example of an indicator could be the percentage of founders, or rather the entrepreneurs, applying improved financial management practices. And where do we get this? We could do like surveys, self-assessment, reports from the trainers, mentors, and then also we could look at the baseline data that we already collected in our 5-stage approach, and then end line. And then when we look at a result like customers and revenue, so we could look at the change in active. So you can now be able to compare the change in active paying customers and average monthly revenue. So where you can get this data is sales record, founder reports, baseline, end line, and even follow-up. So that's how you need to clearly define your indicator. So this is just but an example of indicator matrix. When we look at, for example, sustainability, because this is a long-term thing, so we could look at the number of ventures who are still actively operating after the program completion. So we could do like a tracer survey study, trading evidence. For your indicators, you should link them to the outcomes, measure them consistently, and it should be appropriate for the people who are in your program. So because like we said, ventures are in different stages. So you need to define different ventures, and then use this to make now useful decision, like using data to make practical insights from that. Next slide. Right, so we've looked at the indicator, an example of an indicator matrix. So when we look at the data sources now, And how do we do a triangulation, which is basically comparing from multiple sources. So when you look at the quantitative evidence, you could do quantitative, qualitative, and then now you do a triangulation. So for the quantitative evidence, we could get these from the baseline and endline surveys, revenue and sales records, customer data, employment records, program monitoring systems, assessment scores, funding records, all those. Those ones we can get the quantitative evidence. For the qualitative, we can get the from founder interviews, reports, FGDs. Those are the four customer feedback. All these they complement, able to sort of compare multiple sources to confirm or explain or even challenge the reported results. For example, if a business claims they've increased their monthly revenue by 40%, so you need to check this against the data that you have. So that's the surveys, the records, the statements, the mental observation, and even market conditions, if any. So where verification is not possible, you need to clearly indicate that as self-reported information. So that's how you build a credible evidence of impact. Next. And yeah, we've looked at how we can define our indicators, what challenges, and how to the 5-stage framework for measuring impact. There are reasons also that can weaken our impact measurements, and we are going to look at the common mistakes that can ruin an impact assessment. And the first one is treating participation as impact. Like we mentioned earlier about reports like the impact. So we don't need to treat participation as impact, but that is like an output. So we need to really understand the results chain. The second one is collecting too many indicators. At the start of the program, you need to clearly define the indicators, or rather the indicators that will meet the objectives of the program. So you don't need to collect everything, yet you're not going to use that data for anything. And then the third mistake is starting without a baseline. Like I said, baseline is like your starting point. So without you having the starting point, when you are at the end point, you cannot really be able to see maybe where you started. So you need to clearly establish your baseline before the program, so that it can be now, you can be able now to compare what you had at the baseline and what you have at the end line. And then you need to also measuring only at completion. Yeah, I think that's clear. Using identical indicators for every venture. Like I mentioned, ventures are different. Entrepreneurs are in different stages. So you need to clearly understand that, and also relying only on founder self-reporting. I mentioned, building a credible evidence, you need to have the qualitative data, quantitative, and then now you're able to compare. So you don't need to rely only on the self-assessment data, because of also the biasness that can come with it. And then another mistake is claiming attribution too strongly. Attribution, for example, I know different ventures participate in different programs, so you don't need to strongly attribute change because of a program. There could be other reasons that you need to, or other factors that you need to understand before claiming attribution to a specific program. And then lastly is reporting only successful ventures. In monitoring and evaluation, you need to keep all the positives and the negative outcomes of the program, as this will help us now get the learning. So you need to report all either successful or unsuccessful. And credible evaluation should now explain that variation and not hide it. Next. As I wind up, maybe the key takeaways now that we've been able to see, from now reporting these results to understanding the change. So you've seen how we can transition from inputs to understanding that impact. So always begin with the intended change and note the indicator list. And then always establish a credible baseline before doing the implementation. Measure application and business change, not only the knowledge and participation. That's very key. We talked about the founder capability and also looking at the business side, the venture side, that is, if they are gaining revenue, profitability, all those indicators. Also use multiple evidence sources and realistic contribution claim. A credible evidence is from one that you are able to compare from the self-reported data, the quantitative data, qualitative data. And then now lastly, continue tracking ventures even after the program completion. Now that's where you get the impact of the program. Always you do a follow-up. It could be a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month, and even long-term where feasible. Yeah, so that marks the end of my presentation. Thanks all for listening. Thanks, Linda.
Sure, thank you too. So we've reached the Q&A session of our engagement today. So please feel free to ask Phylis any questions you might have regarding her presentation. She's all ears and ready to answer your questions, or if there are any experiences from the participants here, please feel free to share as well. If this resonates with you in your line of work, it would be nice to also hear some other perspectives from the audience. So over to you, dear participants. Okay, so we have Jaya. Jaya, please, you can unmute and ask Phylis your question or questions.
Sure.
Yeah, hi, Linda. Hi, Phylis. Thank you for the wonderful presentation and taking us through deep diving into how we can measure entrepreneurship impact. My question is more related to the program side of it, the operational side of it. So, for example, if there are organizations where they've not been able to meet the outputs and outcomes that they had started, have you come across something of sort in your experience, and how did you tackle that kind of conversation, especially when it's an easy way to become a conflict between a program and an MEL and a data person if it's not in healthy way? So have you come across any of such situation, and if yes, then how did you tackle that?
Thanks for that question. And I would say when an organization, or rather like a program, is not like meeting their outputs, the first thing is not to like adjust those figures, but you need to understand why that gap is existing. So I haven't like encountered that, because like I mentioned, you need to do like those pulse checks before the end of the program. So once you start like with your baseline, you need to, at the midline, you need to like sort of look at the pulse check. Are you delivering what the program was intended? So in my own perspective, I would say you need to like start by comparing first what was your actual delivery outputs, and now you need to identify whether the problem that you are having is relating to those unrealistic maybe numbers. It could be delayed in implementation, and also maybe the inadequate resources. So you need to like sort of understand that, so that before like you and report that transparently. Yeah, it's not always about reporting success, like I mentioned. Yeah, it could also be like the negative side. So you need to pause and check what factors is causing like your program not to deliver the intended results. So you do like a pulse check. Yeah, I hope that answers.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great
And
question.
also type in the chat if you've encountered this, and maybe what exactly did you do to solve that. Thanks for your question.
Okay, so we have one from Amma, and she's asking, what do you do when you realize after collecting and analyzing your baseline data and later validating it through interviews, you realize there were some errors on the details participants provided? Should you collect a new baseline? That's a good question.
Right, I think let me read it through.
Sure.
All right, like I mentioned, building a credible evidence for impact. I mean, like there's that self-reported data that you should always now do a comparison. So you need to like sort of identify that for you to don't rely on self-reported data. If the baseline, because I know like, someone could overstate, or rather like over-report their numbers. So you need to like sort of compare. So you don't need to start now collecting like a new baseline, because then the program is midway, or rather the program is at the end. So definitely the numbers will have changed. So you need to like sort of now do the comparison between what they are giving in the interview and what they gave at the baseline. So that way you are able to claim the results well. Yeah.
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 Okay, I hope Amma is satisfied with your response. Okay, we have another question from Katiti. Thank you, Phylis. In your experience, how long should one wait after program closure before conducting an impact assessment to ensure the data reflects sustainable change? Great question there.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for that question. That's really a good one. So the timing, I would say, depends on the outcomes that you are assessing, really. But for most entrepreneurship programs that I've seen, I would recommend like you start doing an initial like follow-up, maybe after 3 to 6 months after the program. And then now you start like following up by an impact assessment, maybe at around 12 months after the program. Yeah. But this really depends on the outcomes that you want to assess, because some of them could come like maybe after 3 months, after 6 months. So yeah, that would be my answer. I hope that answers Katiti's question. Yeah.
Great. And yeah, there's some compliments as well. So Christine says, thank you for the great presentation. And Kemboy says, thank you, Phyllis, great presentation. All right, we still have time for one question, one burning question. Anyone wants to go for it?
Could be also reflections, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any takeaways,
Yeah.
that would be great. Okay, I see Christine.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine has dropped something in the chat, so let me read it. Assessing impact should continue despite project closure. The community should continue to realize value. That is why in project management, support sustainability to assess continued impact should be ensured during program implementation. Yeah. So I think that's a contribution from Christine. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So either questions or reflections, feel free to add. Okay. I don't see anything new. So yeah, maybe just one quick one from me. In terms of gathering evidence on how various businesses or ventures or startups are doing, where would you place site visits? So like if at some point in the program, maybe you, the project manager or program manager, has to go and actually see for yourself with your eyes what's going on at
Yeah.
the organization's maybe headquarters or maybe where they're setting up their business. I mean, aside the reporting that they do, which of course you're relying on based on a trust-based relationship because yeah, though you might not be there physically with them, you know that because they're reporting things are happening. But just to be sure that, you know, there's some level of quality control or like quality assurance that people are actually doing what they say or what they've committed themselves to doing. Yeah. How
Yeah.
would you place or where would you categorize site visits and what do you think would be the value in doing that? Or yeah, having site visits as part of the plan.
All right. Thanks, Linda, for bringing the aspects of field visits. I know that's very important because in some of the programs that we also run at the incubator, that's one of the things that we do, the site visits. And I would say, from my own perspective, where feasible, you could do maybe as part of the like even baseline to get to see where they are now, depending on the nature of that business. And you could even like do another one now, like maybe 3 months after the program. Yeah. So it can be even started at the baseline.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
makes
it's a
sense.
very important thing, yeah, for especially for quality control. Yeah. Especially where and where funding goes in, because someone could be reporting they're like building a business. So you need to see how they're really using that maybe funding from the program. Yeah. It's very important.
Right. Thank you so much. And I see Christine has shared in the chat. So she said program reviews are part of the monitoring process to ascertain if the program is on track. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Do you have anything to say about that, Phylis?
I agree with that. Yeah, it's a process. So you need to always monitor as part of maybe even the pulse checks. So you need to see if the program is really bringing that impact. So it's a monitoring process.
Sure. Okay. Any final words from you, Phylis, even as we draw our session to a close? Yeah, I know you've said a lot, and there's a lot that we need
Yeah.
to go back and reflect and digest.
For me, I would like to thank everyone for listening and for all your insights, for the questions. Yeah, thanks everyone. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I like sharing more content on monitoring and evaluation, so we could like engage there as well. Yeah. And thanks, Linda, for creating such an impactful space that brings practitioners together, so we are able to share like our insights and get to learn from one another. Thank you.
Thank you too for your time with us. And yeah, this definitely will not be the last time we'll engage with you. See the value that you have brought to all of us today. We truly appreciate you for your time. And yeah, everyone who has been able to make time today, thank you so much for joining. I know people are joining from different time zones, and it's late where you may be. Yeah, so we truly appreciate the sacrifices that some of us have to make to be part and in terms of enriching our discussions. So I've dropped a number of links, so please go through them. So the first one is the feedback form. Please do well to provide feedback on today's session. Would love to hear from you or read from you what went well, what we can improve on, and also if you'd like to suggest topics for future conversations or discussions. Also, there's a link to our YouTube channel, so please feel free to visit the channel to watch our previous sessions. And today's session will definitely be shared there as well once we've edited or revised some sections of our recording. And then you can also follow us on X, LinkedIn, and you can also reach out via email as well. And yeah, Phyllis has also shared her LinkedIn profile with all of us. So please do well to connect with her after here if you'd like to take this conversation to the next level. And yeah, I hope that something good will come out of your engagement with Phyllis or even with other participants here as well. So, as usual, I'd like to just thank you all for coming and hopefully would meet again next month. So, see you all. And yes, let's keep doing research monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and in some places, accountability. Thank you all, and goodbye for now.